And here we go. A lot of people still coming in, but we shall start anyway because we have to get going a bit. I'll just lower that down slightly. Okay, how's that? All right. So welcome to our session about unleashing your higher mind, how to use more of its power, and a whole host of very, very important things. We're going to take this a little bit advanced so people can understand, even if you've been doing personal development methods and techniques for a long period of time, this will be very helpful for you. And if you're new, you're going to get a special kickstart on the track of life, so to speak, by hearing about this right at the very beginning. So we know that we live in an amazing world, new inventions, advantages, and advances in technology, unimaginable wealth for some is flooding in. We hear about the billionaires in their 20s through some sort of program they've invented. And what you're going to find is the contrast between the haves and the have-nots will become more pronounced in the near future. We're finding the hollowing out of the middle classes, which we've talked about previously. We won't go into that in this session. But what's important for you always is to keep very alert in these times that we live and, and decide which is it going to be for you. Are you going to go onto the haves or the have-nots? Because it's going to be very much a choice, a decision that's necessary to follow through. And if you want to be positioned for the best lifestyle experiences possible, which sounds like a lot of fun, as well as enjoy marvelous states of awareness, feelings of great inner strength, and these are the fundamentals of a great life, then it is to your own higher mind you must turn. Nothing else will do it for you. You will need to rise above the ordinary states that most people live in, the ordinary states of consciousness that most people live in, and this will allow you to awaken to your most natural state. Now, in order to do this, you need a complete understanding of your higher mind. Now, this is a new phrase. It's not so much higher mind, we'll call it that. It is actually that which is higher than the mind. See the difference? So it's something above and beyond our ordinary mind and even our superconscious mind, and we're going to call it that, and I'm going to explain it very carefully for you as we go through. It gets very interesting, and all the things in order to be able to do this are in fact quite straightforward. It's not some complex, when I say advanced, it's not something difficult, it's easy. And we could write Higher Mind for Dummies if we wanted to, just to make it easy, but it is very profound, as you'll see. So first of all, what you have to do is to let go of what you are not, so you can become who you truly are. And you do this by accessing the real power within you. Few people ever consciously access this or even know about it. So what does that mean exactly? Let go of what you are not. Well, what you are not are basically the things that you have, not what you are. So you have a personality, okay? You have a body. You are a body and you have a body. And you have all sorts of ideas and opinions and memories, and the list goes on. So that is what you have, but it is not what you are. And this is where it gets very subtle, but I'll give it to you very, very clearly, because if you get this, you have the secret key to being an incredible person, having an incredible life, because the universe is there and it's yours, as you'll see. So one of the great mysteries, let's see how and why it is that techniques don't work for you. If you've done an awful lot of methodology in the past, then sometimes it works a little bit perhaps, but if it doesn't work for a lot of the time, people are unsure and they don't know why that's happened to them. So we'll clear that up too, why the techniques don't work. Why can't they just visualize or affirm something or do a vision board or that sort of thing, and it just turns up like so many people suggest? Because as we've heard many times, the activities of mind are prior to everything. We're in a mind-based universe. The intelligence of life dreams up its mind-based ideas and blueprints and visions and so on, and they become solidified into the material world. So what most do not understand is that all personal development techniques, all the things that you've ever done to try and create your life, are really only aimed to awaken, turn on, and activate the life creative power, that invisible intelligence that is higher than the mind itself, which allows you to manifest what you want. This is the crucial secret. Let's see why. Because people normally believe that it is the affirmations, the visualizations, other techniques which actually cause the results, as if they had some sort of creative power in themselves. That's a grave mistake, because these methods, fine though they are only signaling devices for something else. Now, sometimes, if you're lucky, a message can get through, and that's rare, usually, quite honestly. But what does happen for many people is that the wrong message gets through to this higher creative intelligence, and it causes the opposite to what you consciously want to happen, because you're dredging through the subconscious automatically 24/7. You only have to wake up from a nightmare or a worrying dream or something like that to realize there's a whole lot of other stuff going on deep down that you don't know much about. Now, people are not taught in our education system, or even alerted in general in some way, to what is going on in the sense of creating life experiences. They totally misunderstand what they're meant to do. They are made powerless by the political, social, consumer system we live in. They are denied knowledge of what we're covering here this evening, and this undermines them, sabotages them, limits them, and you, of course, from being able to create the life that you want. So let's look at some strange things that occur to us all, which we tend to just forget about. But when you do aim your attention to try to understand how and why these things can happen, then you start to open up yourself to this higher part of the mind, the highest part, that which transcends the mind. We use the word mind because people are familiar with it. They're used to it being something creative. Now, just take one example. This morning, I was deeply asleep and dreaming, and I had to get up for an appointment, and I put my alarm on the night before, and it was about 15 minutes before the alarm was due to go off. I was still sound asleep. Now, in my dream, I saw a very unusual looking clock face, a little square clock, in the bottom right-hand corner of my internal mind space, and it showed that the time was those few minutes before I had to get up. So it drew me from my dream. It gave me a shock. Oh, it's time to get up. Something kicked in, and I opened my eyes and turned over to look at my physical clock on the other side, and it was exactly the same as the clock in my mind. I closed my eyes again, and the inner clock face still showed the same accurate time. Now, I was dreaming a clock that was perfectly timing the outer world of human experience. It was inside my mind. It was part of a dream. It was there in the bottom corner, and outside my real clock, real time clock was there. Now, how did this happen? How could I be dreaming a perfect clock with the perfect time that matched to the second what was going on in the real world, so to speak, in my physical clock? How does it happen? Now, many people have had the experience of having, say, and they put on a couple of alarms to make sure they don't miss it, and then they wake up fully a couple of minutes before the alarm rings, and they turn it off, jump out of bed, turn it off so they don't disturb everybody at home. Now, what is it within them? What is the clock within them, based on their time zone and everything, that causes that to happen? What is the intelligence that exists? Because it's an intelligence, obviously, that exists, that knows they've got to get up and make sure they get up in time not to disturb the other people. Well, I've had the experience, as many have, when I'm meditating, pitch dark room, I can, with my eyes closed, I can see things in the room in a darkish light, but I can still see them. I can see the candle, the unlit candle, and the hymn book or whatever it is. I can see it there with my eyes closed. I close my eyes, completely closed. I even hold my hands over them sometimes, and I can still see into the room. It's not a memory, it's something else, because, you know, sometimes the candle's burning and flickering, and sometimes it goes out, and there's all sorts of things that can happen there. Now, this is quite common if you meditate in a hall with a lot of people with your eyes closed. Many people report the same thing. They can see the hall, even though the lights are dim, and they can see that people are moving, getting up from their seat and going out, this kind of thing. Several other people I know, and this is quite common, they can watch the blood flowing through their veins and arteries, they can see various organs functioning, and that is very strange. What is it that allows that to happen? There must be an inner vision. Well, we know there is because of the dream world, but how does that inner vision also see the outside world when our eyes are closed? And what about normal coincidences? Have you ever thought of someone you haven't spoken to for years and they call you out of the blue, or you bump into them on the street a few minutes later? Or maybe you've had the coincidence of being in the right place at the right time to meet some influential person. Maybe they're going to give you a job or some other benefit, or the myriads of other coincidences and synchronicities that are normal in everyday life. So you've got to ask yourself, what is this reality or intelligence that not only allows this to happen, but causes it to happen? Something is in play that's doing this whole thing that you live in and as and through in life, your body, your personal mind, the outside world, other people. If you see, what people normally do is they just don't examine it. Scientists in particular don't like to examine it because they can see no physical cause. In other words, there's no thing to examine, and that's fair enough. That's what science is. Most people just accept these things, brush them off as a coincidence. They sort of pocket them away under a word. It's a coincidence because the mystery is too deep to unpack. If you sat back and said, okay, what is it that's doing it? Because if you do that, then you're opening the door to an incredible kind of freedom that you didn't know was possible. Because obviously something's doing that. Now we call that something higher than the mind. Okay? The superconscious part of the mind is connected with it, but there is something else that's higher than the mind, which responds to us, of course. And as you dig deeper, as we will in this session, of course, you'll find that all these things, like coincidences, are tips of the iceberg of the secret knowledge to create your life in the way that you want it to be. So we're going to examine now the most important and most profound reality of life. We've just given a few hints so you can see something must be there existing, doing things. And particularly if you believe in Newtonian physics of cause and effect, that's obviously something is causing the effects to take place. And the first reality is to accept that your true essence has been covered up by your conditioning and, of course, the demands of the consumer society that we all live in. But that covering can be released in the most joyful and stunningly fulfilling ways. And this is traditionally called the spiritual path. Now, what is very important about that word is that it means energy. You see, spiritual teachings, particularly non-religious ones, which is what we're dealing with here, exist in all societies as mystery schools or mystery teaching, something like that. and they arise as a natural part of the human being, because life was meant to be much more than just paying the mortgage or rent or working 9 to 5 or just remaining in an ordinary state, a limited ordinary state. And this is why that urge is within everybody. And if you bury that urge, which many people, a lot of grog, they smoke cigarettes, they take drugs, they blob out, they do all sorts of things because they are contradicting the existence of this higher nature, and the body, the mind, just doesn't like that. They don't know they're doing that. They don't know anything about spirituality in the truest sense of the word, which is energetics, we should really call it, of a higher nature. And this tremendous yearning for something of a higher nature is there because people feel something is missing, something they want to experience, but they cannot grasp it. I mean, every human being really, when you lift the lid on them, when you can get through the sort of daily mask, knows they have so much more to live for. But what they don't know is where they can find it, nor do they know it comes from what we call this invisible intelligence, this invisible mechanism, which is higher than the mind. And so what do? Well, the urge is there, they want it, so they search in the wrong place, which is the material world. They go and, you know, of course it doesn't work, but the new car becomes just a car in a few weeks. Doesn't matter how glamorous and wonderful and amazing the things are that you get, it becomes less stunning as time goes on. So let's see now if we can define what the invisible mechanism is, enough to a sense that you can get a grasp of it. You can think, oh my goodness, I see, wow, now I get that a little bit, because that'll help you an awful lot. And first, in order to allow this to happen for you, first of all, something is obviously creating your life. Some intelligence. You are not aware of it. You are not aware of how it does it. You are not doing it. Something is doing it. So you have within you, you accept this, that you have within you a mysterious, energetic substance. We call it energy because the universe is energy and matter, as you know. This mysterious, energetic substance that controls your life. It's an unseen force, and it creates all your experiences. Now, that would be useful to know, wouldn't it? Be very useful to find out exactly what that is and get associated with it, because without knowing what it is and not deliberately causing it to manifest what you want, you have to do it, you see. You have to play the game. You're in the game, it's called life, and you want to play it, which is called manifesting. And if you don't manifest, you're along for the ride, aren't you? So if you don't use it in the proper way, which we'll go through, you're restricting yourself to only using a tiny proportion of this life creative power. So my advice would be, from now on, catch yourself when you are trying to do things only on your own and not deliberately using this innate intelligence. Okay? That's the important part. Catch yourself when you're not doing it. So when you're struggling, or you're working hard, or you're just going about your daily business, take a pause for a few seconds. What exactly am I doing? What am I using to create this experience? Just my personality, my behaviors, my physical actions? If I'm doing that, my personal memories, I'm leaving myself very short. Okay? You want to get over that. And in the Indian yogic wisdom, which is the deepest and most profound body of knowledge about this life creative power, this intelligent energy is called chitta, C-H-I-T-T-A. Now, they have studied this immensely. They've got many more hundreds of words for all this kind of thing than the West has. And there's a lot of intelligence there, a lot of brilliant insights that we can use. I'll translate, so to speak, them for you here. Now, what we call this collection of words describing this invisible intelligence is mind. We just call it mind. We don't really know what a mind is or is made of. It's unknown, you see, because the mind is invisible. They talk about the mind being thoughts. They now talk about it being the brain, part of the brain. Now, explorers of the universe, the inner universe, in the East have been studying this mind stuff, let's call it, for thousands of years. Literally, they have a whole tradition, as I'm sure you're aware, based around the Himalayas and various other jungles and forests and deserts. 400 different languages and cultures in it, and an extraordinary place. But Western psychology, which is hardly 100 years old, has only just dipped its toes in the ocean of what the mind really is and how it works. Because the East is so far ahead, it'll be a waste of your life if you wait for psychology to catch up to find out what to do. We'll save you that ride there. So make your commitment to yourself to discover what this energetic substance actually is. It exists. Find out how it operates in your life and what you need to do to use it far more consciously. Because it is the holy grail, the ultimate prize of personal development. Many people are attracted to personal development, but they're kept at the low level, the low intelligence level, by the multitudes of teachers out there who themselves are at a low level, quite obviously. And really what people want is the ultimate advanced secret knowledge that will transform their life. This is beyond what the Secret film gave you, interesting though that might have been. Because unless you understand your higher mind and its potentials, unless you understand the mechanism, it's challenging to cause things to happen. It's like getting into a car, not knowing what the steering wheel and the pedals are for. And you wonder, what the hell is this? You don't even see the key to turn on the ignition. But there you go. This is what people live their human life as. They don't know the steering wheel and the pedals. In other words, they don't know the higher part of the mind, that which transcends the mind, in fact, and its potentials. So your first fundamental of knowledge is that there is a faculty, a force of gigantic and unimaginable intelligence that is within you right now. You don't have to go and get it somewhere. You don't have to behave in certain ways, have some moral or ethical behaviors or rules and regulations or anything of that nature. None of that is necessary. You just have to start to focus your attention on it. And that's how your unconscious, your superconscious, your subconscious, your conscious, all these things, all these parts of you work on that. And they bring and attract to you the things that you experience, bad or good. We do live in the law of attraction in a way. It's actually, in truth, the law of projection. And we know it as the sort of the tip of this gigantic iceberg of intelligence as the actual creative and manifesting power of your life. It's a secret knowledge people have sought for thousands of years. You have it. You know when something goes well, you're in the zone, things start to happen, and you feel good about that. This is what you're touching on. That feeling good is the great secret, because it's the feeling that works through this. You need to be able to feel your way into creation and manifestation, not think your way into it. You work it out by thought, but you have to feel it in your life to materialize whatever it is that you want. And the more that you do it, you will unleash and free its power. It is an infinite source of power. So from now on, if you want to experience an extraordinary life, or even just a fulfilling one with enjoyable experiences, you must regularly focus your attention on knowing and using the invisible mechanism which is higher than your mind. So don't think you're using it when you're thinking or visualizing. Those are signaling that thing, but it's that which transcends you which is doing the job. And that's why all the spiritual paths and the religions and anything to do with higher mind suggest that attitude of openness and inner surrender, to open the contractions within you to allow that force in. That's what it is. So when you're now going for new things, when you're going for a great relationship, lots of money, a better career, anything like that, then you must embrace and include at least the potential of this higher part of yourself, your invisible mechanism, in what you do. So there is the power of three, it's called in mystical schools. There's you, there's the object of desire, and then there is the embracing of the energetic intelligence of life. See how the three things go together. And as you do include this, as you get into the habit of including it, I'll go into how to do it as we proceed, if you get into that habit, then things will start to unfold for you in extraordinary ways, even seemingly miraculous ways. I've had a number of things which are shockingly miraculous. You just, so it's so fabulous and so fantastic. And not only will that be practical of its nature, but you will also find this subject the most fascinating and valuable of all, because when you start to discuss it, think about it, talk about it, what happens then is that your state lifts. And this is one of the great secrets. If you're talking about, let's say, consciousness, your state will lift. If you're talking about that which is higher than the mind, your state will lift. You will feel better. You will look brighter. You'll become better company. That's just the side effect of it. It is so powerful. It's just a side effect of it. So what you do, you don't have to speak to people in the sense of trying to influence them and get them to examine themselves in some way. General conversation is fine, talking of experiences you had as a result of it, and so on. You just take advantage of the hidden wisdom and apply it to create what you want. And we're in a great time to do that. These tumultuous times, we're going to be facing the future challenges of society and the new economy and the robots and the artificial intelligence and all that stuff which is pouring into the media every day. If you do this, you will be in the best position possible to benefit and prosper and thrive in what is coming up. So again, don't muddle it up with the personal mind. That's the mistake that people make, and that's why so few people have success with their techniques. They think it's something to do with them in some way. Your superconscious, of course, is in daily contact, that sort of higher part of your personal mind that links into the intelligence that runs and organizes the universe. But this higher and higher mechanism is above that as well. Now, if you're guided to finding out what it is, then you can really work through it. But to try and discover it on your own is actually very hard. You need help to save you the decades that people actually spend their whole lives trying to find it. And what it's called, actually, in all the mythology, things like Golden Fleece, Holy Grail, people have sought it for thousands of years. They formed huge cultures around it, religions around it, all this kind of thing. But it is invisible, it's neutral, it's responsive, it's there as a sort of substance, but it's an invisible substance as well. And everything you do, everything you have done, whether you know it or not, has been aimed to activate that invisible mechanism. Now, what happens if this is all everywhere and easy to understand? What happens? It stops you being able to create your life using simple techniques that everybody knows, affirmation, visualization, whatever. Why is it they just don't work? Well, this is important for you. As you begin this process properly, as you head and aim for this highest intelligence, the cage of your past, which actually is the conditioning which bars you from expressing your invisible power, is weakened. So just by turning your attention to this, you're going to draw down power, creative power, and that is going to weaken the hold that your cage of conditioning has over you. So that's the first thing that happens. The second thing that happens, in its weakening, its contents and its structure starts to flow into your personal consciousness. And here is the problem, because all those activities that are inside you that are to do with storage of negativity are being released. So the cage is weakened, up comes the old material as the force comes into you, and what happens then is that it undermines your life and your power of expression and blocks you from success with your life creation techniques. Now, these hidden cage instructions coupled with your unexpressed energies and emotional blockages, are the patterns which undermine your entire life. So it's an unavoidable thing, because what is in there has to be freed. And what it does is it embeds you more powerfully in your subpersonalities. It drives you usually into being some sort of power freak, or some sort of lost sheep, or it could be anything of that nature. And as the ego, as it's called, this narrative identity, which is made up of stories, that is what you are in your personality, as it's shaken by the power of the force coming in, all sorts of behaviors come out to be expressed. And it is always accompanied by more narcissism or selfishness. That's what happens. The selfishness builds, because what is happening? That false self, that ego, is hanging on for dear life. It doesn't want to lose power. So when you find yourself getting angry, emotional, over the top, too talkative, anything like that, that's a sign that there is a battle going on within, and you just have to plow through it, so to speak, and remain conscious through the whole thing. Remain conscious, because as these old patterns come up, they can be very, very slippery and hard to grasp and identify. And once you use your higher mind more consciously, this becomes easier to handle. In other words, you can see yourself and those old behaviors. When you can't see your behaviors, people try to shout each other down and things like that. When you can't see those behaviors, then you are a victim to them. But if you can develop enough consciousness by awakening the intelligent mechanism there, the invisible mechanism, then you can draw down more awareness, and so raise your own consciousness at the same time. So let's just unwrap some of those secrets to save you this decade of trying to find out for yourself. First of all, keep in mind from now on, your personal mind has no power to create experiences. It can only instruct and request the invisible mechanism that actually does everything to respond. The personal mind, your personal mind, that thing that we hear in our head, which seems so important to us and really seems to be who and what we are, is nothing more than a tiny speck of the contraction of the universal consciousness. And which is why when you meditate a lot, the personal mind can be released. You can go in, as I've done, meditating away there, and the personal mind sort of relaxes and disappears down to some tiny corner of your mind space, and you're left in a sort of invisible inner peace. You don't know how you've done it, but what you've done is you've obviously opened yourself to the universal consciousness. Now, what is interesting too, of course, as I've just described, that most people are at least partially aware that what happens to them in their life has something to do with their past history. Although you'd be surprised the number of people who dismiss that reality. They believe the events of their life are all random or not connected to something. And what that means is that when things go wrong for them in their life, they don't know that it's coming from them. They can't see that connection. They believe that somebody is doing it to them, or life's a bitch and then you're dead. They have these kinds of thoughts in their heads. So what you have to do to help you through this and get through it much more powerfully is you have to come back to what you are, which is a body, mind, feeling system or being who moves around on planet Earth living out experiences. You are not part of your identity or personality or memories. These are things you have, as I said, not what you are. And it's very important because, strangely enough, the identity that you believe yourself to be, this personal mind, is the biggest block to your ability to create what you want. Interesting, isn't it? That is the block. Those collection of impressions there. So what is it? that causes those experiences for you to live out? Have you any idea of that? Have you really thought that through? How do those things happen? How did my relationship turn out in that way? How did my bank account turn out in that way? How did I live in this house? What am I doing in this life? People have these existential questions all the time. Now, what it is something that your whole system does. We're talking now not of just a few thoughts, which is what a lot of people believe, but your whole system is a vibrating energy system which pulses out like an impulse, constant impulses, pulses out things, instructions into the universe, and you live them out. So it is your head-to-toe feeling, vibrating mechanism that is the creator of your life. It vibrates, it resonates, the whole thing, you're not aware of it, and that is what signals the invisible intelligence mechanism of the universe. It's your constant total pulsing out, and what you have to do is to learn how to spread your awareness through the whole of your body to the point where you can alter those vibrations. And if you look to the ancient techniques of yoga, that's what they're all about. A lot of people think that yoga is about giving up desires. That is a misunderstanding. That's the monk's end of the spectrum, not the householders. The monks, yes, you give up desires, go and live in the monastery, blah, blah, blah. The person who's a householder, you and me, we have to use the whole system that you live in and as and through as the creator of your life. See the difference? How people stuck in sort of junior personal growth, they just think a couple of ideas, a couple of visions, maybe I'll do a week of looking at a vision board or whatever it is that they do. They are so far in the kindergarten that it's surprising anything gets done. You have to become what you are, which is a life force, a being, a whole being. And this activity that it does, which accesses the invisible mechanism on a continual basis, is going on 24/7. 24/7. So let's sum it up. You live in a mind-based universe. You have to have that completely clear, because otherwise you'll be confronted with challenges all the time. We've got plenty of knowledge for thousands of years. Those who've explored the mind, particularly again from the Himalayas, that gives us plenty of knowledge to use. And what is interesting is that you find that this knowledge runs along the same track as quantum physics. And the fundamental difference between the past considerations of how the universe works and quantum ideas we will use is that the observer, you've probably heard this, it's quite popular, the observer, you and me perhaps, can move, shape, and form matter into a variety of objects. Now this is a big leap forward from what the quantum physics people talk about, but this is what the yogis talk about, and this is where quantum world is heading. And what this means is this. Let's look at a simple analogy. For you personally, it's just like a movie special effects studio has people sitting at a computer screen causing the ones and zeros that they're operating in the mechanisms of the digital world to create perfect lifelike images, scenes, and whole movies. Now, I've just seen a couple of days ago San Andreas, which was about Los Angeles and San Francisco falling into a ghastly series of earthquakes. The special effects were so good. It was fantastic. And I know it takes 1,000 people or something to make that, but what are they doing? They're sitting there in front of the computer, doing their artwork, their graphics work, and they managed to create a completely believable, totally believable world. Now, if you can take that idea, this is how you are creating your experiences in life, exactly the same way, so to speak, as a computer artist. And the thing for you the thing for you is that you create your experiences in your life by what? by the intentional focus on the event. And the subatomic particles of life, those dancing, appearing and disappearing little weedy things, take the role of the ones and zeros that the cinema computer graphics person uses, and these dance to the music of your mind. The music of your mind, in the sense of that highest part, is this whole body, mind, feeling structure you live in, a vibrating series of goodness knows what mechanisms, and that pulsing, which is fractional and microscopic, but it is a signaling, projecting methodology. Okay? This is how you're doing it now. So start to use these ideas. These are very potent and practical ideas. And as you start the process of creating what you want, what this does is throw to the surface everything in your memory that blocks your creativity. So it's like if the computer that was making the movie scenes had some memories in there, some sabotaging events in the memory, a virus or something, that would come up and destroy the possibility of the computer artist making that particular wave or building blowing up or whatever it is. And that's the same with all of us. We have loaded up, and when you meditate properly and go within and practice these higher mind techniques, you go within deeper and deeper and deeper, and it's shocking, the layers, the onion layers over and over again, that you start to clear out by pulling down this invisible mechanism of life, this dancing subatomic particle maker, if you like. And the power that you have is incredible, because you are associated with this invisible mechanism of life. Not only associated with it, you are it, you're part of it, you're a tip of the iceberg of it, and you are totally in touch with it and connected with it, even though your whole upbringing and conditioning and cultural, social, spiritual, consumer, business, education beliefs contradict that. That's the battle that we've all got to go through. In fact, it's available to you. You don't have to be a special person in some way to gain the benefits that are available. All you have to do is to know how to free yourself of those past memories, those viruses in the computer sense that hold you back, and also how to connect and contact the invisible mechanism of life. Those actually are completely tied together, as I can see. So all parts of yourself, you use it. And what you need to do is to work at ever deepening levels to take the time to get in touch with your feeling engine. And those ever deepening levels are accessed through methods and techniques that have been known and practiced and created for thousands of years. Actually, what happens is that the deep meditators go in and they are given the technique by the invisible mechanism to help them clean up the personal mind, because that's the job. Clean it up. And you clean it up by aiming to create a great life. You don't sit back on the therapist's couch. You might have to do that if you have serious problems, obviously, but in general, it's actions that free you once you're mixing it with these incredible powers you have. These feeling energies is the great key. Now, cleaning out the mind, getting the feeling energies up and running, completely refurbishing and renovating your own inner being. That's what you're doing. They call it in the traditions, you need to purify yourself. It doesn't mean being a goody-goody or something like that. It's a basic cleaning up. Just when you sweep a room or clean the kitchen, there's a lot of rubbish that none of us need in the inner world, and we have to tidy that up, flush it out, and make it very clear. It's like water. You want water non-polluted. You want it with complete clarity, like on the desert islands in the Pacific, and that's the same with what you want for your mind. And these are the ways that people have used them for a long, long time. And your aim, therefore, from now on is to powerfully and permanently transform your personal mind and your subconscious mind. And what does that mean? It means free yourself from being an automaton. What you want to do is to live your life as an ever successful manifestor and life creator. See, being an automaton, you're on automatic. What does that mean? It means you're weighed down by too much garbage inside. That's what makes you into an automaton. You have to transcend that, clean it out, and manifest, which helps you a lot doing this. You need to believe and see things. And as soon as you start manifesting, you know that you are a life creator. Why? Because you've done it. And how did you manage to do it? How did you manage to project that somebody you haven't seen for 10 years would come into your life within the next few days? Did you do anything? Did you go on Facebook and try to find them or anything? No. You just put that in there. That's called manifesting. And life itself manifests. Not the thought, not the vision, but the fact that you have contacted this higher-minded material and it has responded to you. And you need to realize that this power, you came in with it, but it's been bred out of you by the mass hypnosis of advertising, education, politics, religion, culture, society, etc. So what you have to do is to be convinced, you have to have the belief that that is how life works. And the best way is to manifest little things, but also to learn how to turn on your system to vibrate at a certain resonance and therefore bring to you what it is you want. Once you do this more and more, this is again advanced teachings, once you do this more and more, what you find is that you can feel and sense the vibrations as they take place. You will start to get a knowledge of them. It's not, you know, you're not going to be shaking like that or anything. It's a subtle, subtle thing. It comes with practice. And you can then turn the knob up and down. You can turn your energy system, they call it turning the tap on, a lot or a little. You can expand your energy system or you can withdraw it. You can vibrate it in a very subtle way, very strongly. And when you start to use all the systems within you at once on one goal, then you get the incredible improvements and changes. And so these spiritual or cosmic powers of creation, they are the sustenance of the universe as well. And you need to bring them, this invisible mechanism idea, into your daily experiences every opportunity. And let me give you the central core, the ultimate secret, if you like, of life, is you hear of the word enlightenment or illumination. And what that means is that the invisible mechanism that we're talking about here, which is responding to your every impulse already, but is blocked by your conditioning, is actually a brilliant light. The light of 1,000 suns, it's called in yoga. And the people who have near-death experiences have experiences of light, and they speak of divine light. And they might call it white light even. You don't have to experience that in order for this to work. That's the high end of the yogic practices, but you may experience it. But what you may find is that this divine light, which is also known in the West as grace, amazing grace, will appear to you either visually, internally, or it will appear to you as a increased feeling of energy within yourself. So you may feel it as a vibration of energy, a warmth, a thickening, a pulsing, something like that. And this shows you that you are increasing. It's usually increasing your power. It's accompanied by very deep, powerful, blissful feelings. And it seems to be the most familiar thing of all in your life, something you know so well, but you've lost touch with. But it's very familiar. When I had it the first time, I thought, wow, why did I forget this? How incredible it is. And it was accompanied by expanded consciousness and all sorts of things like that. And the reason you've lost touch with it is because you have risen to the surface, and you only go deeply within when you're asleep, unless you're a proper meditator, of course. And that's because there's so much stress to deal with. You can't remain conscious when you turn within, which you do every night, obviously. And usually you bypass to a very deep sleep, or you find that you're unable to sleep because the conditioning is running so loudly in your head and holding you back, or there can be, as we discussed earlier, physical reasons for that sleeplessness. So your dream world, what is it? It's light. It's light and pictures, images. That's what it is. And that is the beginning of the expression in you of that divine light. You transcend or go through the dream world to the non-dream state of this transcendence, as they call it, the Turiya state. And golly, in this world, there's so much stress to be dealt with that it's very, very hard to experience these higher things, because most people are just processing out the day's stress, let alone the years previously there. So that's a very important thing, is to get the stress there. So all this is designed to help you understand that there are amazing things coming. If you do this work, you will become quite naturally a light worker, where people feel very comfortable in your company. They want to be around you. They don't know why. They are, you know, attracted on this higher level. And you can use it if you want to do healing, if you want to master your money or get the house or relationship you want, something like that. And Muktananda, the meditation master I studied with, said,